I was really good at math, my strong point. I wasn't so good at science, but science intrigued me because there's really no right or wrong answer to science. You can try multiple ways to get the answer based on math, where you have to do the correct steps. So the science intrigued me. I wanted to strengthen it, and I found that in pharmacology. I was a pharmacy technician, so I had to study the science behind medicine and how it works. And then it got triggered more when I worked for CompuDot, which was for coding and IT, tapping into that technology. And so what I realized is we do STEM every day.
My guest this week is Alicia Mitchell. Alicia is a graduate of Bryan Adams High School in Texas, and she also has a business management degree from Texas A&M University. Currently, Alicia is the CEO and owner of Overcome the Challenge, and she's a youth entrepreneur mentor with Venture Lab. Alicia, welcome to STEM with Mr. N.
Hello. Hi, Stuart. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Can we just start with what is Overcome the Challenge and what do you do as its founder and CEO?
Yes, so Overcome the Challenge is basically where I facilitate workshops based in STEM and SEL, which is social emotional learning. So I go to after school programs, I go to public school districts, and I facilitate these workshops to just engage children's interest in STEM and actually tap into SEL for just self-awareness.
And you said there, obviously, that a big part of it is the SEL. Do you do that separately from the STEM, or do you work it all in together? So while they're working on their STEM skills, they're also working on that social emotional learning.
Of course, yeah, it's like the best of both worlds. I combine them together so they're able to be self-aware while they're exploring science and STEM and just intriguing and understanding feelings and social situations with others, and just basically being aware of their feelings while they're navigating these challenges, because sometimes STEM is kind of hard.
And the social emotional aspect is something that's really hard for children. And one of the things I've found as a teacher is with STEM, you can do a lot of group work as well. So I can see how the two things really go hand in hand. And as well as supporting the children there, I'd said that you're the youth entrepreneur mentor with Venture Lab. So what does that involve you doing?
Yeah, so Venture Lab is a nonprofit that basically works with entrepreneurship with kids. So as a mentor, we go through a little cohort where I basically build up their business management skills, the things I went to school for, and help them with their businesses. So they come with a baseline of what their business is, and we help build upon that. So and sponsor them with materials as well.
And do you specifically focus on supporting those with a STEM business outlook, or are you just there to support anyone with any sort of business idea that they have?
Yeah, so we basically support any business idea, but the background in Venture Lab is eSTEAM. It's something that I'm finding out about, connected to STEM, with it just adds the entrepreneurship to it.
And you'd mentioned there you called it e-STEAM, and obviously I refer to myself as STEM with Mr. N, but you've thrown in an extra letter there. So can you explain why there is an extra letter and it's e-STEAM rather than STEM?
Yeah, so the E, like I said, stands for entrepreneurship. So we're helping kids build those skills to build a business, but also explore the science behind it, the STEM part, and tap into it, because a business does consist of sometimes that technology, that math, engineering, and science.
And there's a lot of creativity involved, I imagine, in being an entrepreneur. Do you find that there's also a lot of creative thinking involved in STEM that really allows these two things to work well together?
Of course, I think that's the basis of it. You have to trigger something, to trigger a dream, trigger a thought, and be able to carry out. And so that takes a lot of critical thinking and shifting and pivoting and trusting yourself.
And we've spoken a lot there about your involvement in STEM and e-STEAM and different things, but obviously in the introduction I said that you have got a business management qualification. So where did your interest in STEM come from and how have you ended up on this STEM journey?
Of course. I was really good at math, my strong point. I wasn't so good at science, but science intrigued me because there's really no right or wrong answer to science. You can try multiple ways to get the answer based on math, where you have to do the correct steps. So the science intrigued me. I wanted to strengthen it, and I found that in pharmacology. I was a pharmacy technician, so I had to study the science behind medicine and how it works. And then it got triggered more when I worked for CompuDot, which was for coding and IT, tapping into that technology. And so what I realized is we do STEM every day. So we have science when we're pretty much like dyeing our hair, mixing things, toothpaste and mouthwash has science in it, chemicals, technology, our phones, tablets, apps, the engineering when we want to build a fence or we want to build a shed, the building part. If we add the A, because sometimes we get confused with the acronyms of STEM, STEAM, esteem is the art. We're making signs and we're just, making crafts and math, basic every day when we're budgeting and buying stuff.
And did you have any STEM heroes, anyone that you looked up to as you started to pursue that curiosity?
Yes, I think for me, I think it was that I could do this in multiple ways. There was no right or wrong answer. So the curiosity for me in STEM is just endless.
And you'd mentioned as well there that you were a pharmacy technician. So you've managed to throw in actually another STEM career into this. So can you just explain what the job of a pharmacy technician actually involves?
Exactly. So a technician is pretty much the data entry behind the pharmaceutical business. So we type up prescriptions. We make sure that the patients get their prescriptions on time. Sometimes you feel like Superwoman or Superman. Like if I give this prescription and get it to this person on time, then I can save a life. And so really just tapping into the compounding and the mixture of, medicine was really interesting to me, like the chemistry behind it.
And you also said that you got involved in a coding company. So were you involved in actually writing coding as part of that?
I was actually a program trainer for the youth for CompuDot, where we trained with CoSpace. We did 3D printing, Python. So it's basically advocating for bringing more of this technology development and coding skills to the youth and kind of opening their eyes to it.
So you've managed to dot about into a few different things. So you might actually have quite a unique perspective on this next question. Because right now, certainly in the UK, I don't know if it's the same in the States where you are, but there's a big push for more girls and women in STEM. Now, in things like the biological sciences, I know females are very well represented in general, but in other areas of STEM, they're not so much. You've seen a few different things like your coding and your pharmacy, and then working with the children. What is the STEM landscape like to you? How do you see it for women and girls in STEM?
Yes, it's really rare, as far as just women in STEM. If you look at the statistics and things like that, even I've been through certain situations where I felt like the only person in color when I was in an engineering class or around these type of people. But it pushed me to, give out this same type of knowledge more to get interest in STEM as far as women in color and women in general, girls.
And you've mentioned obviously in there about being a person of colour and how you felt you stood out. And I've highlighted there that women are underrepresented in some areas. Is that the same for people of colour as well, that they are even further underrepresented?
Yes, I guess, the unconscious bias that comes with it, and having to prove it yourself and work harder. So I do, stand by that statement.
And do you think it's important for people to have STEM role models that they can look up to, somebody that looks like them and sounds like them, to see where they can go with things?
Of course, of course, of course. I wish I had this role model as myself when I was growing up because I didn't tap into STEM until my mid 20s, almost my 30s. So it was just like an undiscovered part of the world that I knew nothing about until now. So if I had this role model earlier, I think that I would have been on this train a long time ago.
And that's why it's great that you're on here to be able to talk and be a visible face in STEM. Have you had experiences like that with children that you've worked with where you've seen them look at you as that sort of role model and this is somebody that looks like me and is showing me a path?
Of course. I also do like career exploration because you see, I've tapped into so many roles. So I show children just my diverse talents and how I became to where I am. And sometimes when I get done, I always like, who wants to be an engineer? And a lot of kids raise their hand, and it makes me so happy because they're experiencing something that's kind of like out of this world.
And obviously, the work landscape's changing a lot these days. I mean, there's careers that exist now that one I wasn't aware of as a child, and two, didn't exist when you and I were younger. The way technology is advancing, how do you see the STEM landscape going forward, and how much should children be looking towards STEM in terms of career aspirations going forward?
Of course, like I tell children, if you're doing Roblox, if you're doing any type of, coding and these apps, then you're already doing it. And now we're at, I think, the front line of AI, artificial intelligence, which is building. So I've also been tapping into cybersecurity, which what has happened because we can, sorry, the security in cybersecurity is like almost a threat because of AI and the advancement of technology.
So, can you explain a wee bit there about exactly what you mean by cybersecurity? Because I know, but just to make sure that anyone listening is completely clued up and how AI is threatening cybersecurity.
Yes, of course. Let's break down cybersecurity. So we have security, which you want to secure and protect things. And you have cyber, something connected to the internet world. So we're just trying to protect the internet. And that goes with, PHIs, like as far as medical, it goes for your data information. How many times we hear about data breaches all the time? So that's what cybersecurity is. We're protecting people's personal information. We're protecting the world, the president sometimes, and keeping those things in a safe place.
And how is AI threatening cybersecurity?
Of course, because AI basically is maneuvered on its own at times. It kind of autopilots. It does need a person, to program it, of course, but sometimes computers are not 100% right, and they do make more common mistakes than I think than people.
Do you think AI, though, offers more advantages to the future than disadvantages?
I do think that it offers more advantages because of the faster of the connectivity that it does, the range of it, just being able to do things and be places we can't be as humans.
And that's another area where children and young people can look forward to, career advancement is what is working with AI and that sort of technology aspect, which again is great that you're in the schools and different youth clubs and things and doing that and getting them involved in STEM and the coding aspects. So this brings us around to what is usually my final question, which is what advice would you give to children and young people out there who are perhaps a bit intrigued by STEM but aren't sure what to do with it or where they can go with it?
Of course, basically, if you like to dream and have an imagination, you like to create things, STEM is actually for you. Like I said, it's no right or wrong answer in STEM. You kind of create different variables, different things to put together to come to this conclusion. And for me, it just makes the brain explode. Like you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that this was this and this contained this. And so if you have a really vivid imagination, which is children, then STEM is really perfect for you. And there's more than one career in STEM. People just think it's about coding or we're like the cybersecurity, but that's just one and two of many things that's there. It's architecture, it's a blueprint, it's all types of things.